with the first session of the day, and we begin by diving into the dynamic world of startups where innovation meets ambition. Let's ignite this spirit of inquiry. Let's put India first. And we begin by diving into the dynamic world of startups where innovation meets ambition. For the longest time, the startup playbook was simple. Grow at all costs, chase the unicorn dream, and let the valuation do the talking. But in 2026, that narrative has clearly shifted. From the heated debates over gig workers' rights to the viral champagne socialist rebuttals from industry veterans, we are seeing a new friction point. Is the 10-minute delivery a feat of logistics or a strain on social values? That's why our first power-packed session is titled Values versus Valuation, Building the Business Case. Today we dive deep into whether a soul is a liability or an asset on a balance sheet. Take a look.
The mood in startups has shifted.
Capital isn't chasing ideas the way it used to.
The conversation has changed.
Numbers are being looked at differently now.
Growth still matters, but it's not enough.
Founders are navigating tougher trade-offs
Markets are watching more closely than ever.
because in the end, value has to hold story.
Values versus valuation, building the business case.
Huge round of applause for what we're going to be discussing first up. And I want to tell all of you that our session partner for this inaugural session is National Insurance, and Thai Delhi NCR is our entrepreneurship partner for this conversation on whether you can scale to billions while staying grounded in ethics. Let's now first get in all our esteemed panelists on stage. Please put your hands together for Upasana Sharma, Executive Director, Thai Delhi NCR. Ankit Kumar, Founder and CEO, Skye Air Mobility. Ashish Kumar, Co-Founder, Fundamentum Investment Advisors. And to moderate this session, let's please invite on stage with a big round of applause my colleague, Shweta Kothari. And as we speak, Shweta, you have another guest joining you. We have Arpana Shahi, co-founder of Gabit, joining us in a matter of seconds. But in the meanwhile, Shweta, the floor is all yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking your time out on an early Monday morning. We are beginning with our first session, and that's on startups, value versus valuation. Value is what we often see on the websites of the startups, and valuation is what they discuss internally with the stakeholders, with perhaps the investors, and what really matters and drives the growth. Now, in the past couple of years, as the AV also pointed out and Krishna pointed out, conversations have changed. It's no more about valuation anymore. Words like unit economics, sustainability, growth have entered the conversation. And with that, the conversations are now fast moving towards what is likely to be the future of startups. What do we see startups banking on in the near future? And to have that conversation, we have, of course, a brilliant panel with us, but I'm going to first begin with Upasana. Upasana, you are a representative of the Thai Delhi NCR region, and so you know what the conversations are, and we are meeting at an inflection point. We were discussing prior to the start of this panel how the world is changing at a very fast clip. We're also looking at perhaps how startups are going to evolve their business models going forward. There are conversations not just on consumer preferences, but what kind of business models are sustainable. What is the feeling on the ground? And I'm asking this on the back of a major geopolitical war currently ongoing in West Asia. What is the feeling on ground as far as startups is concerned? What is their bandwidth looking like? What sort of changes are they adapting to?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. I think it's a privilege to be here with some lovely founders, and I'm waiting for Arpana. She'll be here, as well as investors, and on this very august panel. On the question that you started with, I think there is no doubt, and we all would accept that today we are sitting in a very, in a world that is sitting on a flux, actually. We really don't know where things are going. The problem is not that it's just a war. The problem is, I think, there is a lot of uncertainty. I mean, there have been wars before, and wars are uncertain, but with or without the war, we have reached a point in time in global politics where things are very uncertain. And this is going to remain the playing field for anybody who's building a business. And therefore, this is something that is going to remain in the minds, and there is. Having said that, so that's one piece. The other piece, of course, is the whole technological shift, fundamental change in what the technologies that we were building on and working with in the last 25, 30 years have moved with the advent of AI. So that's the other shift. But given all this, the geopolitics, the sort of fundamental change in technology, startups and entrepreneurs, like I was talking to you a little while earlier, remain a very optimist lot, a very optimist lot. So they may have these apprehensions.
Not that there is a choice. One has to be optimist when they're starting a company.
Exactly. To be a founder, to be an entrepreneur, the primary requisite is that you are an optimist. And therefore, you are, come what may, change whatever that I need to sort of figure and address, I will go ahead and this is what I'm building. I will build given the constraints. Even if the constraints move, new ones come in, I'm still building. So that remains the strain. And I think, yeah, I mean, like I said, things are unsure, unclear, and we'll have to wait and watch. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
As unclear as it gets. And Ankit, on that, I think while there is thrust on building value increasingly in the past 1 year, there's also a lot of conversation on being sustainable, about being, friendly when it comes to environment. And the latest changes tell you that it's all the more important today to find a growth path that is sustainable going forward, where there are lesser emissions, there is lesser, impact of energy shocks, and that's exactly where Skye Mobility comes in. Is your business model fundamental to the changing times? When you assess what's happening around you, do you think you've built enough value to sustain over time?
Thank you so much. Good morning to all of you. I think fundamentally, when you look at the whole scenario in the world today, the entire landscape is revolving and it's completely changing every single month, right? It is impacting the global logistics ecosystem to a larger extent, which, in my opinion, gives a lot of opportunity to startups in terms of localizing and developing things which can grow this country into a whole different thing altogether. When you come to sustainability, again, that has got two elements how a startup looks at it. One is that what you're building in has got the element of surviving on its own, has got the element of utilizing the capital very efficiently, because we all know that capital has become very expensive today. You need to sort of utilize every penny of it, ensuring that at the end of the day you are trying to create some kind of a result, which needs to go and sink in different manner. But at the same time, there's a whole bunch of startups which are coming more on deep tech, more on space tech, and where the government is very much favoring, and now with the whole new concept of the definitions of the deep tech getting changed, etc. I think this more appetite from the whole investor community, which needs to go from the government side, that needs to go towards having an appetite of building a product in India cannot happen in 3 years. It is a 10 years process. Testing it out, doing different N amount of things altogether to ensure that this really goes to the market. That kind of appetite used to exist in the Western world. I think it's slowly and gradually coming down to India as well. Okay. Startups are getting some bit of a time. They're not in a rush to go to IPO in the next 5 years or so. And that's one part of sustainability that we look into, that If you get a capital, hook onto it to look into the aspects that you need to build for next 10 years. You need to build a product which really goes to the market and which finds a product market fit. Some people find a product market fit in 1 year, 2 years. Some people find in 5 years, 6 years. And it takes whole amount of the hockey stick jump that everybody looks into it from a valuation and value perspective. The second piece of it, as we all live in Delhi NCR, I think creating something which can really impact the environment and public at large is very, very valuable, right? That's one of the things that we do in terms of the drones going and delivering goods.
Let me quickly tell our audience, if you're not aware of what Skye Mobility does, it's very fascinating. Skye Mobility, currently operating in Delhi NCR region, particularly in Gurgaon, delivers your parcels for you at your gate. And they're doing it in real time, and they're doing it with much more efficiency, for that matter. Ankit, you shared with us how the logistics costs are way lesser than traditional logistics.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started doing this 2.5 years back. We have already done about 3.6 million deliveries in the past 2.5 years, saving about 1,000 tons of carbon emission. And that's the sustainability piece of it, is which comes going to the doorstep and making the drones deliver the entire stuff, which is in turn reducing the cost by almost 15%, 10 to 15% for the brands that we work with, for the platforms that we work with, compared to a traditional logistics. And that's going to change, and that's going to really go up to about 20, 25%. Now, while we do this, and while the cost benefit goes to X brand that we work with, we still earn decent amount of margins. When I say decent, it's 2 times of what a traditional logistics companies like Delivery earns. So that's literally going in that particular manner, that we are not compromising to acquire customers, to acquire brands. We are not compromising our own margins, but we are rather shooting that margin to go up and up with more advent of autonomy coming into the whole picture and the AI coming into the whole picture. So what we recently did at the AI Impact Summit is we inaugurated something called as a physical AI infrastructure, which is enabling a drone to connect with the mailbox that we install in a residential township, and then the autonomous rovers to take that package and go to your doorstep and deliver you the package. So that day is not far when, starting from the office buildings, the day is not far when you are able to communicate more with the rovers and autonomous robots compared to the human being in terms of exchanging your OTP and getting your shipments delivered.
Interesting. Ankit, would you invest in a company like that? Or is it too risky? The reason I ask is, since we're discussing values versus valuation, we do see that the balance quite tilts in the favor of growth. And it still does. So when it comes to investors, are they very picky in perhaps investing in a company, such as, for that matter, Skye Mobility, where the numbers are looking good, but there is the pace of adoption is not as much as you would like. So for investors today, what's that hard choice that you have to make while investing in a company? Is it just a buzzword, unit economics, but you're still looking to cash out and you're looking for massive growth? Where do you draw that balance?
Thank you, Shweta. I think, first of all, it's great to be here, right? You have, almost started with putting me on spot. See, the basic premise of any investor is to be able to multiply the amount of money that we are putting into a company over a period of time, right? But that will only happen when a value gets created, right? Because we are not saying that we are going to invest today and then we are going to be exiting in the next quarter or two, right? We are a long-term investor, which means that only way to make money as an investor in a long-term asset is that when the value has to be aligned with the valuation that whatever you're doing, right? So is growth important? Of course, the growth is important, because we are not saying that we are looking at 10% annual growth. We are looking at a 30% annual growth as an example, but that does not have to happen every year, right? Typically, if you look at, let's say, the kind of example that Skye Air Mobility is kind of talking about, the first few years will always be build-up phase, right? So as an investor, our job is to be able to understand that are you building enough capability that when you start actually growing, you will start growing faster than anybody else, right? Because if that does not happen, the investment does not make sense, right? I think the only time when we will effectively understand that, you are building capabilities, not growing, and you should not be growing initially because building capability, but the moment you start rising, that rise has to be much, much faster than.
So that's a yes.
So the answer is that growth is important.
No, I'm not looking for an investor for Skye Mobility. That's not my job. The reason I'm asking is, I want to know whether your preferences have changed over the course of last 5 years when it comes to investments.
No, the preferences have always been the same. So the way, so Shweta, I kind of look at it, right? So if you think about what the investment used to do, let's say 10 years back, we were, as a country, we were building demand-side leverage, which is why most companies were consumer-first marketplaces, right? If you name all the big names that has come up in the last 10 years, these are like the Zomatos of the world and the Paytms of the world and so on and so forth. These are primarily consumer-first demand-side companies, and they built a great logistic layer on that. If you think about what, let's say, is being built today, right? And we spoke about physical AI quite a bit. I think we are talking about building a lot of supply-side leverage, whether it comes to quantum, when it comes to, let's say, energy transition, energy storage, when it comes to building logistics through technology, which is drones and then robots and so on and so forth. I think all of this are being invested. If you think about last maybe, I would say 3 years or so, I think the number of deals that you will see in physical AI or the adjacent will be larger than the number of deals
Absolutely.
that will. So the dollars amount will start following because you have to build the initial funnel, which is what I think where we are today.
In fact, about 30 to 40% of the venture capital fund is only going towards AI startups. So obviously that's the next buzzword, and perhaps I'll also pick some of your brains on what the future of startups is looking like. Aparna is with us. Thank you very much, Aparna. You finally made it. Yes. You're in a very tough space when it comes to D2C brand. There's a lot of competition. Customers have become very choosy. And when it comes to wearable health products, they are very picky on what products they want to go to. In that case scenario, how do you really find that balance between value and valuation? You have to give customers value, but you also have to, have a certain valuation at the end of the day. How do you find that balance?
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's great being here. Thanks, Shweta. Very interesting question. The way we work at Gabit, and for that, I think I'll just take a minute first and talk about what Gabit is for the context, so that everyone has the right context. So I'm Arpana Shahi. I'm the founder of Gabit. Some of you might have seen this smart ring on your fingers or your friend's fingers. So we are a one-stop health and wellness platform, and we bring together over 150 biomarkers on this one platform, and we power that through AI to give you integrated, personalized insights that are very specific to you and that help you achieve your health goals. And the way we bring these 150 biomarkers is by using a combination of these health wearables that we spoke about. So Gabit Smart Ring is a very popular one. We also have a smart scale. We have continuous glucose monitoring, and we also do blood work. So you can use a combination of all of these and get 150 plus biomarkers, and they all talk to each other in a way that you cannot get it on any other platform globally at this point. Now, that itself, to your point, how do we think about consumer? That is how we are obsessed about delivering the right goals to our consumers. That is the core of how we build Gabit, that it is very outcome-oriented. Now, these 150 plus biomarkers that you get over here, through that, we help you focus on the 4 key pillars of health: fitness, sleep, stress, as well as nutrition. And we are the only wearable brand globally to do that. No other company is focusing on all these 4 pillars. Some focus on just fitness, some focus on just sleep, and a little bit of it here and there. But we were the first ones globally to think of this holistic wellness concept and bring all of it together on this one ring. And for that, last year, we also got the best smart ring of the year by Amazon. So all of this is a combination of a bunch of factors. One, that we are very focused on actually solving a problem for the user. Second, we focused on innovation and bringing something to the users that does not exist today. And third, we deliver great quality product. It's high accuracy, you can test it across the best benchmarks that's out there, and we stand at the top of that list, and that's why we have a lot of customer love. And we always focused on bringing more and more to the users.
Okay, so that's as far as value is concerned. Let's also talk about valuation. How many of you are wearing a health band, a health wearable, a ring, a band, a watch with a show of hand? Well, that's your market. Yeah, you are, of course, you're wearing Gabit, I believe.
Of course.
That's your market.
Yes.
And it's a very tight market. You're competing with the likes of Apple, So
Sorry, with?
you're competing with the likes of Apple, you know. They may not give you all the values that you're giving right now.
Yeah.
I mean, health, yes, sleep, yes. May not give you other parameters that Gabit is giving, but there are lots of players out there. So how are you then wooing these people out there? Why should perhaps a Krishna buy a Gabit?
Yeah. So, you know, like what's amazing is when you ask how many are wearing, barely 5 hands rose up in this room. And that is the potential that, you know, we see in India. That as a country, until COVID, we were very curative focused. You know, if there's a problem, abhi to sab theek hai, everything is going fine. Why do I need to invest in like, you know, a wearable? Why should I, you know, proactively do something? When the doctor tells me there's a problem, then I will wake up. So that is what we were as a country, and we are slowly waking up, and that's why there are 5 hands that, like, you know, come up in this room. But in 5 years from now, the same room will probably have 50 hands coming up. And that is what Gabit is creating in India. We are creating that culture of preventive and predictive wellness that did not exist earlier. And if you were to think of it 2 years back, people were not even talking about health wearables. So that is what Gabit has done, that we have brought this conversation to India where a lot of like common people are now thinking about what is a health wearable, what is the smart ring, why should I wear it? Now to the second question, which is about Apple Health and stuff, of course they've been there, but you know, there's a very different DNA when you're a health company versus you are a device company. So Apple is a great company, but they're a device company. Anyone who's seriously into health and has done the benchmark knows that that's not the gold standard. So it is a great brand. It is a great product brand and an electronics, like, you know, brand in general, but it's not a great health wearable brand. So yes, we take pride that globally, if you were to think of the best out there, in the top 2, 3 right now, and this is not us saying that, but the top biohackers who actually understand what a health wearable should do, who have tried everything. They have tried Gabit, and they proactively are posting about Gabit. We are not asking them to. They're going in conferences and talking about Gabit, that this is a wearable that I'm using, and you guys should use it too.
All right, thank you for that. Let's quickly move our conversation, Upasana, back to, you know, AI, agentic AI, the capital that is flowing towards this buzzword AI. Most of the venture capitalists in 2025 invested in AI, AI-related startups, deep tech-related startups. Is it just a bubble?
No, why should it be a bubble? It is a complete shift in how technology is, what technology is today. 25, 30 years ago, when internet came in and everything else was, in the late 80s actually, when India as a country, we moved towards computerization, I think there was a big, apprehension and anxiety about how computers are going to come and they're going to take away all the jobs, etc. And therefore, everything will flow towards the computers, etc. So obviously what has happened is new technologies came in. When the wheel came in, yeah, that was a big change. Similarly, when internet came in, technologies, all the businesses moved to internet. Today, even the smallest SME business sitting in some tier 3 part of the country has got internet presence. So that is important. And therefore, for about 3 decades, money sort of flowed into the internet businesses. Similarly, now there is a complete sort of a foundational shift in technology, and therefore money is flowing to it. Here is a technology tool which is there to be used, and therefore every business in whichever way is using it. There are obviously AI first companies, but there are other sort of legacy companies who are also now using AI for multiple processes as well as whatever else that they were doing as a business. So obviously, because there is this new technology, money is going to flow towards it. It is going to happen. And I don't think it's a bubble of any nature. It is just that what has happened is that maybe AI is being used a little loosely, and I think it will take a little bit of time for it to, and I think it already is shifting. People are getting a better understanding of what it is and what it means and how it will pan out for individual businesses. And therefore, yeah, money does flow there.
So it's a sustained transformation.
Yeah, you see, so again, as TIE, we have been around as an organization that supports entrepreneurship globally for more than 3 decades now, almost 35 years. And we have seen these cycles in, businesses, startups getting funded, new kinds of startups coming in, the bubbles of 2008, etc. And again, how we moved from e-commerce to other sort of businesses, etc. So these things happen. These are cycles. These are advent of new technologies in this case. And yes, this is the reality actually of how businesses are shifting.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, yes.
I had a comment on that, right? So, see, I think AI is the new infrastructure. I think, and whenever you move from an existing infrastructure to a new infrastructure, you go through a journey which looks like bubble in the short term,
Okay.
right? The same thing happened when internet happened. The same thing happened when mobile and the GPS happened. So I don't think we are any different from that perspective. And if you think about infrastructure companies, Shweta, I think the companies which truly are able to become infrastructure, they become very, very large. So it's very natural that everyone will try to kind of figure out that, hey, can I basically be part of a company which will become the new infrastructure? And well, people will go on that spectrum on extreme right and extreme left. And it's by design. So I don't think we have to, see, investor money is effectively money from large wealthy classes of pools of capital, right? And if it is going to create a new infrastructure and going to new companies, honestly, I'm happy. Why should I be unhappy about it? Even if it feels like a bubble, be it.
So you're riding the bubble. That is what investors are doing right now. So what happened to companies for that matter, Ankit, where you know that most of the money is flowing towards AI, and that's where the capital is, and that's where all the energies are. So how do you as a founder then ensure that you remain relevant? And how do you position yourself?
I think it's not a sustained transformation. It's a disruptive.
You don't think it's sustained?
I don't think it's a disruptive transformation. There's a difference over there, right? When we talk about disruption, we talk about that something is changing things at a much rapid pace as we are not able to understand. And a lot of people call that as a bubble, in the sense that this might not happen. And I think it's a defensive strategy that people take in general, figuring out that this is happening just because it's a bubble, right? It's going to happen and it's going to continue for a very, very long time. And it's a disruptive technology. And it's disrupting every single application layer which is currently there in this country. Forget country, the entire world for that particular example. Maybe any industry, maybe defense, drones, robots, anything and everything. It's becoming much, much easier and much prevalent in that particular aspect. I think there's no, it's more about, have you heard about Symbian, for example?
Yes.
The Nokia's operating system, right? At a given point of time, Nokia was very apprehensive. Hey, Symbian is the best system which is there. We will not go to and switch to Android. And you look at the condition of, Nokia, what happened to them in context of the entire telecom sector and the entire mobile internet which happened in this country to a massive extent, right? I believe it's more like it's going to happen the same way with the AI. Okay. Either you adopt it or you are wiped from the entire system. It's not going to be that you will get a lot of time to adopt it. Either you adopt it, get it in practice into the real life, into the application sectors that you're currently utilizing with, or you are just running out of time. And that time is very, very essential and critical for the startups to realize it and be able to work on it, right? We work on tons of data, consumer data. We can predict what a consumer is going to order tomorrow, right?
Okay.
That's the predictive analytics tool that we are developing. Now, we are a delivery company. We have nothing to do with that. But we're still having that much amount of data. That what do we do with that data? That's how we process that data into building something which is going to uniquely position and customize the whole user experience for somebody. Because I do have ambitions to get to B2C at one given point of time. I don't know, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, but that's going to happen.
You're preparing yourself for B2C, perhaps?
We are preparing ourselves. Also, as a user, I believe that something which is going to be more personalized to me, something which is going to be more customized to me, I'm more prone to buy that compared to buying something which is very standard. Okay. Everybody wants to differ themselves from each other, right? I carry X, you carry Y, X, Y, Z, and all this kind of nuances which goes in everyone's life.
So what can we expect from you? How will you differ? What are you planning? Not sharing yet?
Do you want me to tell all the secrets here?
Okay. It's okay if you don't want to spill the beans. That's completely all right by me. But
yeah, but I think
give us an idea if you can.
Yeah, I think one of the aspects that we are working on right now is how to get the physical AI infrastructure in the real world implementation, right? Gurgaon is going to be the first city. We have already identified a place. We have tied up with the developer. We're gonna take up the last 50 meter, 100 meter, also through the robots going and making those deliveries happen. And when I talk about that, that's not like 6 months down the line. That's like 4 weeks down the line. So that's how fast the transition is happening. That's how fast movements are happening.
Okay.
And all the IT parks, the idea is to take it to all IT parks, because the IT parks today do not allow the conventional riders to get inside the building.
Absolutely, right.
Right? So robots are no threat to them. They can always allow the robots to get inside the building and drones to deliver the entire stuff.
And that's not a very distant future. That to me...
So basically, AI is a new way of doing things. You know,
Right.
we used to have those thick, I don't know if you guys would remember, thick directories of yellow pages, right? Then yellow pages moved to just dial, and then things moved forward. So just as a new way of doing things. The sooner we adapt, the better we are going to be. And of course, some things are going to get dropped in that way, but then new things are going to come up.
Absolutely. You know,
okay.
it's both exciting and scary when you say 4 weeks. Like when you say that that is such a short runway for you to change things so dramatically, but it's not new. I mean, we're already looking at those pictures of robots from China emerging where they're doing kung fu and they're doing karate. So it's not a very distant future. We've already seen what robotics can do. It's just that we haven't seen their utility in our daily lives just as yet. So I'm very excited for you. All the best to you. But Aparna, you're already in the D2C space, which is extremely competitive, as we discussed, but also, you know, we started with war and how the geopolitical tensions are fast changing reality on ground. For you, how do you remain true to the values that you discussed while also not passing some of that burden on to your consumers? Because supply side constraints are being felt. I'm not sure if you're feeling it in your industry, but if that percolates down to wearable and to healthcare industry, how do you then remain true to your values without passing that charge to your customers?
So we have always been very, very customer-centric, and we really mean it. A lot of like, you know, brands would say that, but, you know, when you actually break it down to what they're doing, they don't mean it. So we, for example, took 2 years to do R&D on making this ring to make sure that we can offer this ring at a price point that India can afford. Because the next available ring at that point was double the price of what we are offering. So because of that 2 years before launch and 2 years after that, so the total of 4 years of R&D that we have put into this, we are able to offer a ring which is comparable and, like, you know, better than the best that's out there, but at half their price. So that is our commitment to keeping our promise to our customers, where we truly believe that we don't want to create like a product which is for like the super premium and the super rich. It is a product which is for India, and hence it has to, like, you know, cater to the value and sensibilities that we have. And hence we don't even have a subscription. Like, you know, a lot of global players, they work on a subscription model where your ring is double the price. On top of that, you have to pay, like, you know, them every month just to see your data. And we don't believe in that, right? So you pay us once and then you're covered. There's no subscription that you need to pay. So we have spent a lot of effort in making sure that our supply, our design is kind of like not, like, you know, getting disrupted with small disruptions in supply or geopolitical situations.
So you remain resilient to the geopolitical situation?
Yes, there wouldn't be any change into what we're offering to the users.
Okay.
So that is not an...
that's wonderful to hear. Then the prices are going to remain same, at least for now,
yes.
In the distant future.
Yes.
All right, I do have last few minutes on me, with me, Upasana. I want to come back to you for last one question, and I think since we're discussing values versus valuation, we're also, you know, at the start of 2026, we've seen a lot of change in the way startups have pursued valuation. They don't care about being a unicorn anymore. I believe some of the investors also don't really think that that's what they want anymore. They want value. In your understanding, what are we walking ourselves into? I know there is a lot of uncertainty. I know you know, you can't predict anything for sure, but what would be the next wave of startups like? What would their priorities be?
So, you know, you rightly said, there has been a lot of concern about, and a lot of conversation where we put valuation and value on two sides. Whereas I think what, over the last few years, what founders and the ecosystem in general has learned, that one is the factor of the other, right? They are all a part, and pretty much a part of each other. So value is something that is really larger. It is an outcome of a culture of a company. And it's not a choice. It is something that that sits inside. I mean, everything that you do inside a company is a factor of the value of the company, what you create as a culture in the company. And valuation is something at the same time, if you're sitting in the startup ecosystem, you can't wish it away. See, you are working in an industry where somebody is building a business and then going to somebody else who has no idea about that business to begin with, and he's asking him to invest in this business. Now, one is as, yes, you have to communicate to that person, what is my story, but then you have to show him the intrinsic value that you have to invest money in my business. And that guy is investing with the sheer plan of making the money 10x in a certain amount of time. Because he's an investor. By the definition, that investor is an investor because he wants to multiply the money, right? So the communication has to be done in terms of valuation. Now, you have to stay true to your values to communicate that valuation. If there is an aberration between value and valuation, that creates a problem. And the communication becomes strong. So you can't wish away valuations. Valuations are going to be there because you have to ask somebody else to invest money in your business. You have to communicate valuation. But building the culture and the right culture at the right time, yes, the responsibility lies with the founder, and the founder has to set it up at the right time. But that has somewhere, in the last 10 years or so, somewhere in some cases went wrong, and we saw the results of it. But I think we have reached a point where this is a learning curve in any industry. I think some of the stories that happened should not have happened, maybe. But if you look at the life cycle of an industry, 10 years of learning curve is okay. We've learned. Everybody knows that we have to stay true to value creation. Companies that today, after almost 200 years, Tatas stand out because of the value they have created for the company. And everybody's learned that. Everybody's understood that. Given whatever the headwinds, tailwinds of war or anything else can be, value remains core to what you create as a company. And valuation is a part of it. Like I said, you can't push it away. You ask somebody else to invest.
100%. Very intrinsic, important to any investor for that matter.
Yeah.
And that's what you pointed out, Ashish. You said, the way you look at startups hasn't really changed, hasn't really evolved. There have been a few bad apples, so to say, but value has always been intrinsic and valuation has been the end goal. Has the runway changed? Perhaps, are you giving it more time? Have the parameters around what decides your investment capital, or where does it go, have those changed and those evolved? How have investors evolved in the last 10 years?
Right, so maybe first comment on the value versus valuations before I get into what you asked, Shweta, right? So, see, valuation is a function of current offering, current performance, and anticipated future performance, right? So current offering, current performance is data. I think you and I will likely arrive at the same conclusion, right? Future potential is something you and I could probably disagree on, right? And which is why, now, I think valuation, we don't have to think of valuation as a negative word. I think in my mind, it is a very positive word, primarily because the reason it is because when the company is very early, they need more resources. If you only provide them valuation based on their current offering and current performance, the valuation will be such small that they will not be able to have enough resources to be able to build their capability, right? So it is a good thing, right? And every time, like we were talking about, that the world goes through one infrastructure to a newer infrastructure, people think that something major could happen, something big could happen, right? And which is why people start valuing future potential sometimes higher than the, current performance, right? And the lopsidedness increases, which is where it looks like a bubble, right? In certain cases. So the answer is that, what has started to happen absolutely in the investment world is that the companies which are becoming larger and larger, right? So which means that when you are looking at investing in a company, I am also thinking that my competition base has increased significantly. Earlier, I used to think that maybe in an area, 5 companies would survive, let's say, in a digital era. Now I'm thinking that maybe 3 will survive, but when the 3 will survive, they'll become much, much larger. So I would think about giving them a little bit more capital to begin with so that they have a true, chances of being able to win this entire market.
All right, so who will survive? I think that's the key question, and which makes me come to you, Ankit. I think your business model is efficient, as you yourself pointed out. It is sustainable, requires far lesser energy, and has far little environmental impact. Do you believe, therefore, when you put values at the core of your business, the valuation will be helped automatically? You don't have to care about valuation it will tip the balance in your favor?
I think valuations are always an outcome of the value, right? For us, it's more about the value that we are creating internally. It's about the IPs and things that we are sort of transforming through. And that's rapidly evolving. And there's a lot of things which are happening, right? And when you talk about the investors, it's more about the perceived value and perceived valuations, okay? That keeps on changing from investor to investor. That's how you go to 30 investors and 2 sign for you, because they see that value which the other 29, 28 people have not seen. So it really changes, and everybody has got a very different thesis on how they look at doing things and how they look into the investments and kind of stuff that they carry out. For us, it's always about what we believe in and how the team is actually going and driving that down and executing that on ground. And everything else becomes a byproduct of it. We do command valuations. We do go to investors and tie up with them, but we also see them as a partners to us. We see them as a catalyst to us. So touch wood, so far, I haven't got an investor on board who has not helped me out when I needed them. It's not just about the money, but it's also about the network. It's also about the connectivity. It's also about the relation that they bring together to make the company grow and to make the company go to a different extent, right? So I think it's just an outcome of the value. Don't change valuation, but chase the value and create more IPs.
All right, so there you have it. Values don't chase valuations, valuations chase value. My last question to you for that matter, Arpana. Are we now at a point that we're moving away from perhaps hype to the real impact? Because that's what your company also plans to deliver, impact, and hope that valuations one day will reach as you would like them to, right? But focused on delivering a product that people will love, they'll value, they'll cherish, and perhaps also, something that they will take with them going forward. So perhaps focus more on value-driven products right now, and valuations will come through.
So that's exactly how we are building Gabit, and we are seeing everything going in the right direction because of that. Because if you start chasing valuation as the goal, then you're taking away your focus from what you actually should be doing as an entrepreneur, which is to deliver value to the customers. So definitely if the way it has to work is value, and then that will lead to valuation, whatever that comes out to be. But that is how we look at Gabit. For example, linking it to the AI theme that we were talking about. There are 2 kinds of the way I see the world is separated into 2 kinds when it comes to AI startups. One, these are just me too. Everyone else is doing, so I'm also doing. You're not really adding any value to anyone. You're just trying to ride the wave. And some might get lucky and they'll survive, but a lot of them will actually die down over a period of time. But then there's a second kind of startups where they're actually leveraging AI in a meaningful way, either to create the infrastructure in a deep and meaningful way, or companies like Gabit where we leverage AI to create these products and solutions which become an integral part of how you're living your life. So for example, the entire metrics that you see on the Gabit Smart Ring app is powered by AI. We capture raw data, but there's a lot of processing and algorithm that goes into then giving you those metrics. Second, we have our own AI health coach called Pep. So when you are talking to Pep, it's not giving you generic ChatGPT answers. It has all your data, and it's putting all that data and similar cohort like yours in context and the whole health context on top of it and telling you what you should be doing. Hey, how was your sleep last night? And today, what should your day look like? That only Pep on Gabit Smart App can tell you that ChatGPT cannot tell you. Third, we have features let's say an AI-based voice food logging. So you can speak to the app and just say, I had poha for breakfast and veg biryani for lunch, and it'll give you a total calories, total protein, total carbs for the day. So when you start leveraging AI for value adding to the customers, that's where you're creating a product and a company that is actually becoming a part of users' life that they cannot live without, and then valuation will definitely follow.
All right, with that, I think we've come to the wrap of this very first panel on WITT, What India Thinks Today. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Value is what startups should chase. They are chasing. Valuation is a byproduct, will come through. I think that's where we build consensus.